Good morning, good morning. Oh dear.
Morning.
Hello, is there anybody there? My name is Sheena, I'm chairing your session this morning. Welcome to track 3 and session 4 of the day 2 of the conference, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm going to be around to help facilitate the Q&A at the end, but you're not here to listen to me. You're here to listen to these two lovely ladies. I'm going to pass you over pretty much straight away to Lavinia and Carolina. We're going to take you on a journey of their first 100 days in learning and development. Sit back, enjoy, and I will talk to you at the end. Over to you, ladies.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I knew this would happen. Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to have you here for our session about the learning profession, the first 100 days of becoming an L&D professional, L&D manager. Today, Lavinia and I will share our personal stories and our personal outlook on what can happen, what should happen, and what definitely we do not want to happen. But that's going to come in a moment. So we'll share our stories, and then there will be time for your questions, and hopefully we'll be able to answer some of them. And now I will pass the mic to Lavinia, and I'll talk to you a little bit later. Thank you.
Okay, so before we jump into our presentations, we're L&D professionals and we like to know each other. I have a few questions for you. First, who's already an L&D manager? Can you get your hands up? Okay, who would like to become an L&D manager? And who came here because they had no clue what other session to attend? Okay, that's good. We're good. So we all know how important it is to focus our attention when we're learning. So before I start, I would like for you to take 1 or 2 minutes to think of some questions you would like us to answer during our presentations. And I promise this will make sense. So just 1 or 2 minutes. Write in your notepads, laptops, phones. Okay. I can already see some heads up. So remember these questions, because if we don't answer them during our presentations, you can hold us accountable to it. Like Sheena is there, and you can just pop them up when we are at the Q&A. Okay. In the summer of 2018, my manager, back then the L&D manager of the organization I was in, told me for the first time he was not considering me as his successor. He did think I had some strengths. I understood the organization quite well. I definitely had a passion for learning, and I'm a pretty structured person. But he also believed I completely lacked people skills, which back then, to be honest, wasn't far from the truth. And he kept on telling me that over and over again over the next few months. But then he left, and my new manager came with a completely different approach. She still believed that those people skills are important for an L&D manager, and she also believed I kind of lacked them, but she thought that my team could benefit from my strengths. And she tried convincing me of that. She did. And a couple of weeks after she joined the team, I was offered and accepted the L&D manager role. And I thought I was completely ready. I would soon find out that it was kind of far from the truth. And to show how far it was, I asked one of my team members what her experience was working with me in those first few weeks. And this is what she said. Basically, it wasn't fun. She went home crying half of the time and thinking of quitting the other half. She felt that they were lost, I was lost, and there was nothing positive working with me. I promise this will end well. You didn't came here for nothing. So on the one hand, my manager was telling me that my skill set was a match to the role. But on the other hand, I completely lacked the trust of my team. So to quote one of the greats, I knew exactly what to do, but in a much more real sense, I had no idea what to do. In the next couple of months, I realized that to be successful in my new role, I had to completely switch my mindset. I was used to problem solving as an L&D consultant, but now I had to take a step back, ask questions, and listen to everyone around me. That way, I could create a collaborative working environment for my team. I could gather all the information we needed to do our job, and I could put less pressure on myself in, I have to know all the answers. So in the next couple of minutes, I will share 6 areas of questions I think we should ask when we step into the L&D manager role. Now, if we go back to my story, basically no one trusted me in doing this job apart from my manager. So my confidence was crushed. And not having my confidence also clouded my judgment. We always talk about, good, I have my strengths, I'm bringing this to the table, and I still have to learn this. Well, if in a normal setup I would always look at myself like that, at that point I was only looking at my faults. So it was for the first time chaos I couldn't structure on my own. So I did the one thing I always do when I feel overwhelmed. I ran to my coach. And I remember one of the first questions she asked was, who is Lavinia? Because she could see from my stories that I kind of lost myself. I was so eager to please everyone and so emotional about everything that was happening that I forgot who I was. And together with her in the next couple of months, we asked lots of questions. We asked questions about my strengths, what am I bringing to the table? And we did ask questions about what do I still have to learn, who my cheerleaders are, and what can they do for me. But my lesson learned from going through this line of questioning was that knowing what you're bringing to the table is just as important, if not more important, than knowing what you still have to learn. First, because my strengths were the only ones that I had at that point to do my job, which was important to do my job. But on the other hand, I could also leverage those strengths to grow my people skills. So I'm a very inquisitive person by default, and I would always ask questions about the business and how we were doing and what else is happening. So at that point, I could already bring that information to my team and give them the bigger picture and also a sense of impact. But I could also use my curiosity to learn more about my team, which is the second areas of questions I think we should ask. Now, I became the people manager of my former peers. This might or might not be your case, but especially if it is, be aware of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the Dunning-Kruger effect, this is a cognitive bias whereby people who lack experience, skills, knowledge about a certain topic tend to overestimate those skills, knowledge, and experience. So when I became a people manager, I was already working with these people for 2 years. But using working is a lot because our L&D department wasn't actually a team, it was more of a working group. So each of us were L&D consultants and we were serving a business area, which meant we had little opportunity to work with each other. So my knowledge about my team actually came from very brief working interactions and a lot of informal input. At some point, I realized what I was experiencing with my team members didn't match what I knew about them. So when I got my confidence back a bit, I took a step back and started listening. And I listened wherever I could. Obviously in one-on-one conversations, in team meetings, but also in informal conversations. And I got to learn a lot about them. I got to learn what they thought their strengths are, what they still wanted to learn, and even what their plans for the future were. And everybody here already knows this. When you become a people manager, in our case an L&D manager, our success kind of stops being tied to the technical knowledge that you have, especially when you have a team, obviously. It's more about how effective you are in supporting your team to do their job. And by answering all these questions and gathering all this knowledge, I knew my team better. I knew how to support them. And there's something else that happened. I learned more about the organization I was in. So as an individual contributor, I was in charge of our product and tech department. So I dealt a lot with business analysts, product managers, and software engineers. And if you've worked with this audience, you might know that in general, they are quite self-directed. So instead of me chasing them in the building, we were working in an office back then, chasing them in the building so I can gather them for whatever learning experience we were building, they would come to me and push me to build things where they could learn. And while I knew how important marketing was, for example, in L&D, I didn't get a chance to use that a lot because my audience was very cool, to be honest. So I went to my team with this mindset, and they challenged me big time. They didn't feel it applied to all the other audiences in our organization. Just to give you an example, we worked in an e-commerce company, and our customers department team was quite young, and they were dealing with angry customers day in and day out. Not only they had less mental space for learning, they were also dealing with mental health issues. So I understood that getting to know your different personas in your organization won't only help you in building learning products that suit their needs and their priorities, but also in getting them closer to what you're building. And I have to say, if before I kind of knew that organizations, that personas are different in different industries or in different organizations, now I know that personas can be different in the same organization as well. But this is the only part of the story, right? Because your employees are the ones who are buying your products. There's also the business knowledge. And yesterday I was in a session with someone named Kevin Yates. I completely recommend you follow him. And he mentioned this word, order takers. And I believe getting to know more about our business takes us a bit from the order-taking position to a more consultancy position. I'm just gonna randomly ask a question. How many of you got request of, I don't know, I want a time management training, I want a feedback training, I want a whatever else training? Okay. Your stakeholders are just like mine. I think when you get to learn more about your business, you understand that behind that solution that your stakeholders give you, there might be a bigger problem. And you can ask more questions, push them more to get to that problem. And then, together with your knowledge about your audience, you will build those solutions that are a fit to the business challenges they are facing. Now, I got to learn a lot about the business I was in back then, but if I would jump into a completely new organization, I would have to take it from zero. I would have to learn how we're making money, how are we spending our money, what markets are we addressing, do we want to address new markets, what are our challenges, our future plans. All these questions can broaden your horizon and make you more of a consultant. This is not working. Okay. And finally, the questions about your L&D strategy. Now, I heard this once that when you're the first L&D manager in an organization, you shouldn't bother about this. But learning happens even when you're not there as an L&D, even when you don't have an L&D plan. So I think what we should be focusing on in those first few days is understanding how mature is our L&D strategy. Do we have goals? Are they connected to the business challenges? What initiatives do we have? Are we measuring those initiatives in any ways? What data informed our L&D strategy so far? We need to understand that to be able to make informed decisions about the future. And this leads me to my last but not least area, the future. And there's only one thing I want to mention here. You won't be able to answer all these questions in a week. If someone asks you to do that, they're crazy. You need to take your time. You need to take your time to gather knowledge, gather data for your decisions to be informed and not based on assumptions. And I put all of this in a Miro board. It's publicly available. You can access it by scanning this QR code. And you can use it as your guide in those first 100 days as an L&D manager. I will just stay here for a while. Sheena, is everyone getting the presentation afterwards?
It can be, yeah, absolutely.
Perfect, then we'll do that. Technology is failing me. It's a learning. I'm actually going to say this right now. Now, if I were to go back and to do this all over again, I think there are 4 things that I would like to remember. The first one is what I've been talking about so far. Make no assumptions, or as few assumptions as possible. Ask questions and listen to everyone around you. They might be right, they might be wrong, you don't know yet. Be a sponge. The second one is be kind. Be kind to your stakeholders, be kind to your team if you have one, and be kind to yourself. The third one, and it's funny because I know Carolina won't agree with this one with me. If while you learn about everything, you see some low-hanging fruits, something small that can improve a process or that can gain the trust of a stakeholder, you can do that. As long as it's not a huge decision, you can do that and earn that trust that will help you later on with those big decisions. And finally, we, as an L&D professional, I said this to other people a lot. Not everyone has to be a manager. And I have to remember now to say to myself, if I would feel the role is just not suitable for me, I would say no. I would have the courage to say no. Now, 1.5 years ago, I had to make probably one of the hardest decisions in my whole career and leave my team. And I wanted to ask my team how they felt then. And you'll see there's a red thread between the first quote and this one, which is, I cried. The first one was about how frustrated they were with me. This one is about them being sorry I was leaving. And I think I got here by giving myself space, by asking the right questions, and by listening to everyone around me. Later on, after those 100 days, it's only gonna inform your decision-making, your gut feeling, and the way you're gonna interact with your team. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lavinia, for your part of our storytelling, story sharing, and you have set the bar really high and gave me incredibly huge shoes to fill, but I'll try to do my best. And also, take you on a journey with me through my experiences. And though you will see a lot of similarities between my story and Lavinia's story, it also tells us that a lot of things in L&D happen to a lot of us, the same things over and over again. However, I will try to focus a little bit more on the relationship with self as a L&D person in general, and I will also, in the second part, focus a little bit more on the operational, strategic aspect of the L&D role altogether. As you can take a look at the title and see, the first 100 days of getting your footing. Why did I use this particular title? Because L&D and any role within L&D, I think, is one of the most difficult roles in any company. You deal with a number of different stakeholders. There are numerous expectations you have to juggle all the time. And very often you work across the whole organization, the whole company, and you're left in the middle. And getting your footing means that sometimes you have to walk through quicksands, you're on shaky ground, and you just have to make it somehow. But then again, if you take a look at the subtitle, it's slightly different. It's the 101st days of the L&D manager. Because I want you to leave the room believing and understanding that over those first 100 days, every day you get a chance to decide what kind of an L&D person you want to be. And have this check-in with yourself. Is this the scope of the role that I want to have? Is this who I am in this role? And is the me of tomorrow, is this going to still be the same person? And every day you get a chance to decide yes or no. This is me or it's not me. Okay. So what do I normally look like on my first day in L&D or in any kind of a job? If it's a job that is not related to learning, I probably die on day 2. So I've always been in learning, and on the first day, I'm happy, excited, super joyful. And I'll show you something that is basically an embodiment of this. If this works, yay. Are you familiar with the Happy Keanu meme? You might be. It's quite popular. If you haven't seen it yet, you can Google it, and I'm pretty sure you're going to get a lot of hits. This is Keanu Reeves, presumably on some of the first days of shooting John Wick, which is one of his most successful franchise movies recently. And he's the embodiment of me and a lot of L&D professionals on their first day. We're excited, we're ecstatic, like you were embarking on a new journey, a learning journey. We get to learn new things, we get to apply new things, we're going to get creative. We're going to bring value, right? A question to you, who else, who of you also feels very happy, excited, ecstatic on their first day of the job? Most of you? Anyone doesn't? Okay, those of you who don't, I would love to learn more about that after the session. Okay? Most of us, usually if we have a good fit for the role, if we're a good fit with the job, then we're kind of happy. But then there's the 100th day and the new job. And what happens here? Spoiler alert, yes, I'm a Keanu fan. And yes, you will expect one more image, including Keanu Reeves. This is also quite a popular one, the sad Keanu. Actually, this is a cutout, but he's normally sitting on a bench eating a sandwich. He doesn't look happy, does he? And a lot of times we end up as L&D professionals after the first 90, 100, 300 days being demotivated, devoid of hope, wondering like, what has happened? What has gone wrong? Why am I here? Why do I feel burnout? What could I have done differently? What if choice A, B, or C was different? What if, and here comes a Matrix reference, what if I had taken a different pill instead? That's a bad place. That's where we do not want to get as L&D professionals. In any other profession either, but especially in this space because we thrive through learning and through being fulfilled as professionals. So where do we want to get? Who do we want to be? What is the ideal situation? What is the ideal destination that we are trying to arrive at? This is the character played by Keanu Reeves, and this is John Wick. He's a former hitman in the role. That's why he looks like that, basically, if you're not really familiar with the franchise. And he's been beaten, he's bruised, but he's really confident, and he gets the job done. Because being the John Wick of L&D is about staying true to yourself, not giving in, showing a lot of craft, and having respect, but most of all, not giving in whatever you do. Now, there is a very long way between the initial happy stage and one of those two that I have just presented. And a lot of things can happen in between. The original path is quite similar for both. So the first kind of few weeks are a blur. You learn about the company, the team, obviously, the business model. You get to learn about the culture as well. You get to know your stakeholders, the challenges in the company, the risks, the opportunities as well. And you try to figure out where to start and how to prioritize things. And that is the moment when the path diverges into two, either one of those two. So it can either go to the bad, sad, bench-sitting, sandwich-eating Keanu version, or the successful, accomplished, tired but accomplished John Wick version. What can go wrong in the first scenario, in the negative one? Well, it's obviously a number of things, but maybe the role scope that you originally signed up for has changed, and it's not what you wanted to do anymore. Perhaps it turns out to be a hustle culture or a toxic culture, and you just don't feel well with that. Maybe you just realize that the tasks that you're supposed to do are either too complex or too simple, too trivial. It can be whichever. What should happen if you want to get to the John Wick version of the L&D professional? I could call it the keep calm and carry on approach, but I came up with a different framework. And this framework I call the workroom, you got this, and breathe. So basically, this is like the top plane, the top layer, the mindset layer that will get you to do things. So the first thing you have to do is to start working. Do trials, make mistakes, learn from them, experiment, and try to figure out what is the thing that worked for you in this context. Once you got this, you get confident, and you can actually get your footing and keep on. And the last, most difficult part is to breathe. So keep going, keep moving with the confidence you have gained. And this is also universal for any kind of job you're going to have. To be sure, to be confident, to be cool about how you want to approach your job. So that is like the top layer, the relationship with the self that I mentioned at the beginning. I will now move to another layer that is more this strategy, craft of the L&D related one. And there are 4 elements, 4 areas that I'd like to address. I'd like to start with do not get crazy. Does it seem self-explanatory? Maybe. But getting crazy is also connected to what Lavinia was telling you about assumptions. A lot of times we make assumptions based on our previous experiences. And it can get especially tricky if we get the Dunning-Kruger effect, if we put it on top. Because what happens when we enter the new company so excited, so thrilled to be doing those new things? We might overdo, simply, right? We get so enthusiastic, we just walk into every meeting and give advice to everyone, even if they don't really want it. But we're the L&D professionals, we know it best. And I'm missing a word now, overarching energy, we get ourselves into trouble. And this is actually what got me into trouble once. I wasn't working for a company. I was a newbie. It was some time ago, so I was like this textbook example of the Dunning-Kruger effect. And even though the ideas I was trying to put forward, I think they were kind of making sense back then, still the way I presented them, because of this overconfidence I was having, actually got me fired. I was told that I'm not a fit for the role, I'm not fit for the company, I don't understand the business, because I was not communicating in the right way. And my behavior was perceived as arrogant. Right? So making these assumptions that whatever you're there with, whatever you bring to the learning table is always going to be okay, is very, very tricky. Also, making this copy-paste approach to the solutions you had already implemented in your previous organizations and trying to apply the exact same combo in the new context, this is also something that might get you off the right path. Because maybe the solution is okay, but you don't know yet. You have to test first. And I have an example of a colleague who was entering a new organization, and we had this discussion about his first steps. And he already had it planned out, even though he had not joined the organization yet. And he said, okay, I'm going to take the same budgeting solution I had in this organization, organization A, and I'm just going to copy-paste this to B. Like, we don't want to do this. We don't know yet if this is going to work. The next element of the craft-related subject matter expertise part of becoming an L&D manager is understanding the business and its agility. Business acumen is also a buzzword, a catchphrase. Probably you've heard it a number of times in your business contexts, but it is indispensable. Understanding your business, how it works and why it works, is crucial because I'm really sorry to say this, but this is true. A lot of business leaders, they don't understand their business. They don't understand where they're getting money from, how their products work, and what the threats are. And you as an L&D person, even if you understand that, and you bring them the perfect solution to their problems that you have identified, but they don't know what business acumen should mean in their context, whatever you pitch to them will be rejected. Why? Because the first thing you need to do, your first L&D initiative should be to get them on board with understanding their own business. So this is the first key. And agility is crucial here as well, because a lot of companies declare that they're agile, but they really are not. And in crisis, that's when the agility shows up for real. So if a company is able to pivot, change, and adapt quickly, that is real agility. And there are not few companies, as we see and have seen over the past couple dozen months, not all companies can do that. The next thing that we should know is understanding the stakeholders, and Lavinia has also mentioned that. You should know your allies and your enemies, your promoters and your detractors. And obviously also the internal dynamics, the dynamics between the people, but also between the processes, the circumstances, the context, everything is important here. And one thing we very often forget about is understanding the actual decision-making power that L&D has. Do you have any bargaining power at all? Do you have any leverage as L&D professional? If not, it's for you to decide whether this is the circumstance, the context you want to function in. Creating a framework. Creating a framework is something that I see as creating a strategy and then applying the strategy. But this cannot happen until you've gone through all of those previous steps. Unless you understand the business, you're really able to respond through creating the framework. And there are also two layers I would see, because there is this layer of understanding how you're going to approach the creation and then what you're going to use specifically, what kind of tools. On the top layer, depending on the industry that you're in, you can have a very structured L&D system. That would be characteristic of also very much structured industries such as pharmaceuticals, finance, legal. There are certain things that have to happen, that people have to learn in a certain way, and there is not much of a flexibility that you could allow yourself for. You could also have a culture in the company that shares knowledge a lot, and your role would be to be the facilitator of knowledge exchange, of the tacit knowledge in the organization, and making sure that the knowledge is not tacit anymore, that everyone can access that easily. Or potentially, you could also have people learning on their own and just you being the facilitator of the learning culture. You can create a learning culture, collaboration culture, and be the person who's backing that up and pushing this very hard. Obviously, what comes with these different approaches is different levels of control and measurement, and you would have much more control and measuring opportunities in the structured areas and much less in the more relaxed contexts. On the lower level of creating a framework, you would decide on specific tools you want to use, whether you want to work with learning programs, whether you're using predefined budgets with predefined solutions, vendors, platforms, LMS systems, whether you're working as someone who's with more on the HR part, actually creating reskilling or upskilling frameworks, internal mobility, and the like. So there is a lot you can pick and choose from, depending on where your company is. And this will also be dependent on the industry, on the market landscape, on the type of the company you're in. Everything, like the context in which the company functions, will always determine your opportunities and your limitations in your creation of the learning framework. However, there is the delivery part. We cannot keep exploring the context and exploring the landscape of your own company for 3 months and do nothing else and just not deliver. And this is what Lavinia mentioned, that I might not agree with her. Actually, I do agree with you about the quick wins, but in a different way. I literally get an itch inside of my body, and it's giving me the creeps when I hear low-hanging fruits or quick wins, because these are just patches. They don't yield long-term sustainable results. Right? They do not foster enablement in the company. And yes, you have to deliver quickly, but you have to make very good choices, wise, quick choices. And this is actually what Lavinia has also said, that you have to decide where you can have impact early, but something that gets the ball rolling for long-term solutions. Absolutely. And I once worked for a company that was soaked in chaos. They had no strategic goals for the company, and they were basically living from a quick win to a quick win. They're still out there functioning, but I'm not sure for how long, right? So within your L&D quest, you also need to understand what kind of mindset and strategy the company has, and you kind of have to adjust accordingly. And there is no silver bullet here, no one solution. You really have to explore the landscape within your company and see where you can leverage certain solutions and how you can do that. Now, I would like to come back to the John Wick part here. These are the 4 elements. So not getting crazy basically means the John Wick composure, keeping the John Wick composure. Whatever he did, he never got carried away by emotions. And understanding the business means knowing the how and the why of your organization, knowing it and using it properly. Creating a framework means knowing your tools and being able to select whatever, whenever needed, tools, methodologies, frameworks, you name it, for the right context or for the right fight, because sometimes you have to fight. And delivery, get the job done, but stay true to yourself. Right? Remember the 100 first days of check-ins. Is this something I'm comfortable with? And if not, I can decide to go anywhere else. So the six things you need to remember to be the John Wick of L&D. Expect the unexpected, know and break the rules, make a brand for your name through your actions, know your allies or your enemies, choose your tools well, and then execute. And thank you very much.
Now, I remember from my first questions that there are lots of L&D managers here already. And before we move on to Q&A, I would like to do a short social learning exercise. This is not working. Now, from your experience and from whatever you've heard from us, can you turn to a partner in front of you, behind you, right or left, and think of as many ways to end this question. At the end of the 100 days, it would be good to. 2-3 minutes? Can we do that? So, imagine you're in a Zoom meeting and you're getting pulled out of the breakout rooms, okay? Thank you so much. I'm curious, would anyone like to share a couple of things that you've discussed? Please do.
We just talked about at the end of the 100 days, it would be really good to have a seat at the table. So to be respected, for our insights to be valued, and to feel as if we can really drive the learning direction rather than be reactive to the spontaneous needs that the business think they have in relation to learning, but not actually able to get to the bottom of what the real issues are that you're trying to solve.
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
So we said to keep an open mind. So when you first go into the role, you have an open mind, you have a vision, and to keep that curiosity as well, because I think sometimes you can lose that. And then Jamie said, who's in front of me, he said to keep networking, because that's really important, to create trust and not to lose that.
Thank you.
I think a lot of the things that we were talking around is about building that trust and credibility with the business to be a strategic business partner with them. And we talked a little bit about the quick wins versus the long-term goals. And the quick wins can gain trust within those 3 months, because you could come in and, for example, there's no like mentoring or coaching initiatives that are going on. We kind of saw that that's quite a quick win, but it's got such a huge impact and they can be implemented quite easily. Whereas you've got opportunities to create larger programs for management and leadership, which will take longer than 3 months to do. So it's about being strategic and what you can go after in those 3 months to prove your credibility and your trust to get that seat at the table. So there's a bit of a link over there as well.
Thank you. Oh, I love this part. I would never stop. But aware of time,
it's Q&A time, that's my bit. So I think you would, first of all, just join me in giving these two ladies another round of applause. That was absolutely smashing. You see, they wonder why I sit at the back, and that's because I'm watching you, and everybody was hanging on their every word. You see, I'm a spy in the camp at the back. But it is now your opportunity. You have got these ladies here ready and waiting to ask your questions. So I know that, Lavinia, you asked them to think about some topics and questions at the beginning of the session. This is volunteer time. If somebody would like to kick us off, that they're in, off we go.
Thank you. I have, I think, maybe very simple question, but I'm really curious. So I'm not there yet in the role, but I would like someday to grow into. So my question is like, how did you help yourself to grow into the role? Especially when you started the I think for Lavinia, you started your presentation by saying, well, your first manager said no. Thanks.
this is so wrong that I'm going to say this. But the technical skills also helped. For me, it was that. Everything else that I had to learn about managing a team came after. So it depends a lot on who you're working with as well, getting a hand of managing up, that managing up part that no one teaches us. Who is your manager? What are they looking for in their successor or in an L&D manager in their team? I would try to learn about that. And if you want to do that in your organization, but just learn. Keep curious, learn even outside, if you're in a consultancy role, even outside your business area or the scope of your role. Yeah, I think learning is the best way to do it. For me, at least it was.
I would also back Lavinia's answer here, because to me it's also the craft, personally, the learning craft that is super important. So making sure that people learn has always kept me busy. And becoming an L&D manager, so growing to a more strategic, high-level role, was an outcome of the process of just trying to learn things and help people learn.
Super. I see we have another question from the floor, and then we'll come to you here at the front.
Yeah, hi there. Pretty simple question around, what do you see as being unique, if anything, to being a leader in L&D versus other departments, for example, in sales or in product? Is there anything specific to an L&D leader?
That's a very good question. For me, it would be the passion for learning has to be there. There's no question about it. You have to learn. You have to show your team, if you have one, that you have that passion. And you have to show all your stakeholders that. So it's a non-negotiable, if you ask me.
I think there's no really good answer to that. Being within L&D is, I think, a very, like I said at the beginning, is a very difficult role, because it doesn't focus on one aspect. And depending on the organization, it can take really different forms. In one organization, you can literally be producing trainings or content. In another organization, you can be part of HR and literally designing organizational growth. So I think this is, on one hand, unique, because you never know where you're going to end up and come up with within this scope. And it's extremely broad.
Yeah. Interesting. We have a question from the front. Would you like to go ahead?
Thank you so much, ladies. Great presentations. Lavinia, going back to yours, you talk about, you structured it, it's like you have to learn about yourself, you have to learn about the team, you have to learn about the organization and the strategy. And I was wondering if you can share some tips on a more practical side of things. Mm-hmm. How does this look on an Outlook calendar? How does it translate into day-to-day activities to hit those marks?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So for me, it was scheduling sessions with my coach. So I would spend, I had weekly sessions with my coach, then making sure that those one-on-ones we tell everyone about with your team are there, which I didn't do at first, and it was a big mistake. You asked about the Outlook calendar, and then now I'm thinking. So sessions with your team members, informal sessions with your team members. I would add that right from the start. Lots of meetings, meeting other business leaders that maybe you don't know as well, reading a lot about what's out there about your business, for example, if you didn't get a chance to do that, so maybe some alone sessions, and something I talk a lot about, reflection. Give your time some space to think about everything that you're learning every week, maybe not every day. So that would be.
Hi, me again. I've got one question. For me, so I'm moving from a specialist individual contributor to a partner. I'm doing a lot of partnering things at the moment. And the one thing that I know that I really need to work on over the next few months for me is around shifting my mindset to being an individual contributor, to being able to manage other people's contributions and help them learn and grow, and move away from me being an individual to a leader. So I just wondered if you had any tips for that from everyone.
Would you like me to help you out? I think one of the things that you can start to think about, just from my interpretation, whilst you have a think about a response there, is when you're making that step up into, to leading and managing, and you're thinking about how you're going to bring that team with you, one of the things to think about all the time is how you ensure that you're standing out for the right reasons. There's a great quote about personal brand, which is, personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. What I want you to think about when you walk out of this room is you can control that dialogue. So if you start to think about the words that you want people to use about you as a leader, start using those words when you're communicating. Start owning those words. And it also makes it easier then for them to relate that to you. And then that dialogue, that what people say about you when you're not in your room, you are starting to control that. And that can help you find that direction and help take people with you. I would think from that. What do the two of you think on that one?
Yeah, I would say that listening a lot to what people say and becoming this, like Lavinia said before, a sponge. Do not assume anything, just be there for the people first. This will also help you to understand how you want to function in this role, but it will also be like the bridge to whatever people need. And I think this is the first step and the most important one.
Awesome. Indeed. Far away.
I wonder, for you personally, what is the most rewarding thing about being an L&D manager, like from a personal experience?
Seeing my team be successful without me.
I would say it's seeing the impact that you actually have on the organization, and it doesn't have to be this huge program you introduce and you measure results, but you do see that people are actually using their skills that you help them gain on the job. And there is this like tacit improvement that perhaps no one really notices, but you know it's there.
Sorry, me again. Just on that theme of success, with L&D, what is probably a bit unique is how do you measure that success in terms of, and how, if you've got a team of people, how are you rewarding that success? Because there's lots of different measures. It could be engagement with the material. You could put together a brilliant course, but actually, are you measuring the outcome? Again, I work with sales teams. It's very easy to pin everything on their actual sales figures, but actually a lot goes into that. So in your experience, what have you found are good metrics or KPIs to really measure success in L&D? Because it is quite difficult at times, right?
You do know that this is the most hated question of all.
Did you attend yesterday's session, Learning Impact, from Kevin Yates?
I don't think I did.
Follow him. I think he talks a lot also about the process of becoming more of a performance consultant and figuring out those KPIs that you're talking about, because it can be different from one program to another one. You could build something that focuses on retention, I think his case study was yesterday, or it can be something that is focused on revenue in sales, right? So I would say don't stop with the vanity metrics, the attendance rates or the NPS. That's what I consider vanity metrics, and try and get a hang of the real impact that your stakeholders are trying to have. Usually either business or people, because it can be people as well. Engagement scores, low number of answers about leadership or learning opportunities or career development opportunities in your organization, in exit interviews as well. So those can be about people.
Great, thanks.
It makes sense? Okay, thank you.
Can I just add onto that one?
Yeah.
Kevin Yates talk, yeah, I was just going to say the Kevin Yates talk, if you didn't go on the schedule, he's got the toolkits on there to download, and they really walk you through the whole thing, which is pretty handy.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else want to be able to pick their brains, get their opinions? Yeah, you see, there's always a bit like, no, I don't want to ask a question. I don't know. Well, there we go. There's always one that comes up in the end.
I wasn't sure if I was going to ask this, but there was a quiet moment. So I'm quite new to L&D. I'm from a kind of design product background, and I can see in your presentations, I did a lot of reflection, and I've definitely made a lot of the mistakes that you pointed out. I was over-enthusiastic. I kind of gave advice where maybe it shouldn't have been given. I've kind of jumped straight in and tried to change things. How can I try and change that or turn that around?
It takes time, a lot of failures, and being kicked in the butt a lot. So this is basically a very long and tiresome learning journey. It is about changing attitudes and behaviors, and this basically is a very demanding in terms of time, demanding process in terms of time. So I would say be good to yourself and don't pressurize yourself about this too much. It will happen, but it's also good to practice. So intentionally try to reflect on whatever is happening and reassess the situation, but it will not happen overnight. It will not change overnight.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Is there anybody else then who would like to ask a question, get an opinion? You don't have to, it's not compulsory. It's brilliant.
Hi, good morning. I have a question about how to take the responsibility of the training or the learning that they ask. So usually we suffer the request, and even if you know the business, it's difficult to say what is on demand and what you can propose and schedule a sort of calendar. So what's your experience in getting requests or proposing the training for the people? So what is the limit between the two?
Can I ask if I understand correctly? Yeah. Are you asking about being reactive and proactive in a way?
Usually what's the problem, especially in my business, we are a manufacturing company. So a lot of time the request that comes from the field is, I need this and I need it now. But probably the company or the team is not ready for that yet because maybe it's not a priority or a lot of different reasons. But in the same way, we need to provide a sort of specific path or training, whatever, for the people that are coming into the company, but also to grow in the company. And we're always struggling with that. So where to arrive to be proactive and then where to take the information and be reactive to the market.
Well, I would say again that it strongly depends on the company. If it's a manufacturing, there are certain things that have to happen in a certain way, and that's not something you can jump over and leave it behind. So there will be things that the business will bring to you, and you just have to go with that, because this is what they actually need. This is like this external pressure, external factor. Yeah, so basically this is like this one scope that you should always follow.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to pull teeth from you anymore, I promise. Now, obviously, there was a little bit of a glitch with the QR code. It worked when we did the run-through, didn't work when we did it live. It's always the case when something has to go wrong somewhere. So if you would like a copy of the presentation so you can pick up that information, would you please just come and see me before you disappear and go and get some lunch, and let me have some contact details, and I'll be able to go ahead and forward it on to you, and we can take it from there. So I will make my way that way, and you can clobber me with contact details on the way past. Yeah. I think it just remains to thank you both once again for an absolutely fascinating presentation. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to work with you on this. Thank you everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.